Hi, I'm Rebecca from Bekbek Makes, and this is one of the projects that was in the July subscription box. To create this beaded cloud necklace, you'll need the 2 silicone molds, some pigment powders, and some elastic strips and beads. I designed the cloud mold to have little slits in it, and these are for you to place your elastic into. On my first attempt at making this design, I made the strands of raindrops first and then laid the elastic into the mould, but this just gave a gappy finish. So I found that placing the elastic into the mould first, casting it into your cloud, and then adding the raindrops afterwards gave you a much neater finish. You could also use thread or chain to create the little raindrops. Once you're happy with the placement, I recommend just going along and snipping those threads that are inside the mould, because I found when I cured them they stuck up in places, which is easily fixed by doing a domed layer afterwards, but just in case you want to avoid that step. Then you want to mix your pigment powder and UV resin and fill your cloud mould up to the top, making sure that the resin goes underneath and on top of those strands to secure them firmly in place. Now it's going to be unavoidable that it's going to leak through the little tiny gaps there, but we can correct that once it's cured. Once you're happy everything's neatly in place, you can pop it under the UV light and cure. Once cured, I noticed that some of my elastics had stuck up, which is why I recommended snipping them beforehand. You can see it on the surface there, they're slightly sticking up, but that's the back of the design, so it didn't really matter. So as you can see at the bottom, it has bled through, but because it's such a thin amount of resin, you can literally just pinch it and it will like peel off. Next, we're going to thread the beads onto the elastics and then use a tiny amount of UV resin to secure them in place. Once they're all secured in place, you'll notice there's no gaps along the bottom of the cloud. Using the raindrop shape, we're now going to mix the blue pigment powder and some UV resin to create little raindrops. Now you could also use these to create little earrings if you wanted to. I then trimmed the elastic on the raindrop strands that were complete, leaving 2 longer that are going to create our little raindrops. I then snipped these to be the correct length to go inside the mould itself. Once cured, repeat the process we did previously to break off the little excess pieces. And then repeat that step again as many times as needed. To turn the cloud into a necklace, I removed the jump ring and then threaded the chain through the cloud and then reattached the jump ring afterwards. I absolutely love this design. I just think it's so cute. I've got a couple more designs using this technique that are going to release soon, but if there's anything in particular you think would work well with the beads dangling off the bottom, let me know. For the next project, we're going to use the same cloud mould, but we're going to get messy and experimental. So in your kit, you would have received a little bit of washing up liquid and a straw. The first step is to half fill your cloud mould with the UV resin, just clear as it comes out the bottle, making sure that you get around all those little spaces. Next, you want to add your washing up liquid with a tiny bit of water into a little dish. I'm just using a bottle cap here. And then you're going to use the straw to blow the frothiest bubbles you can. For this part, you'll have to work fast. You need to transfer your bubbles onto the surface of the uncured resin as quickly as you can and get it under the lamp. Take care to only transfer the bubbles onto the surface and not introduce any excess liquid to the design, because when I cured this one, as it was curing, the washing up liquid got underneath it and ruined it. Here you can see the liquids got underneath the design, but the surface texture itself looks really good. So let's repeat all that again. The cool thing about this technique is that every single one's going to be unique. To finish this design, you just need to mix the pigment powder and the UV resin together and top the mould up, then fully cure it. There's also another technique where you can brush the pigment powder directly onto the back of the design, and this just gives you a little bit more control with like colours. If you wanted to use multiple colours, you could effectively give it a bit more depth and texture, and then add the UV resin to that and cure it. Then you just need to break off the residue at the bottom of the mould, and you have a perfectly formed little bubbly cloud. This month's wooden project is a sunny garden design, and you just want to paint it using the paint pens and acrylic paints included, and then use the UV resin and the glitter mixed together or just clear as a glaze to decorate it how you feel. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. I really appreciate it.